He is just 2 weeks away from retirement. To prepare for his upcoming life of leisure, he specifically sought out a familiar doctor for a meticulous full-body checkup. The bullet scars covering his body serve as a testament to his extraordinary career. Subsequently, he met with his accountant. According to the calculations, on the day he retires, the pension issued by the company will amount to a staggering $8 million. He also owns 4 properties distributed across different locations. One can only imagine how comfortable this man's life will be after retirement. However, during these final 2 weeks, his company has no intention of letting him stop working. He meets his handler Vivian at a restaurant. It turns out this man, named Duncan, is a professional assassin. The organization he serves has recently seen 4 of its retired assassins assassinated. The most recent victim, Michael, was taking an afternoon nap at his luxurious estate when he was suddenly awakened by a noise. A stunning young woman slowly walked out of the pool. Michael couldn't take his eyes off her. Without questioning where she came from, he immediately began chatting with her. Meanwhile, in the bushes not far from the estate, an assassin had already assembled a Rapper AR-10 high-precision sniper rifle. This rifle uses .338 Norma Magnum ammunition, has an effective range of over 1 kilometer, and possesses extremely high accuracy. The assassin aimed directly at Michael's body, waiting for the perfect moment to fire. Besides him, 2 other assassins were rapidly approaching the villa. They were all there for the same target. At this moment, the young woman signaled toward the sniper with her eyes, indicating it was time to strike. The sniper shot Michael in the body, but it didn't kill him instantly. Just then, the other 2 assassins arrived. This hit squad worked together to finish Michael off. Vivian had discovered that these deaths were linked to a Belarusian gang. Therefore, the company wanted to offer $1 million for their deadliest assassin, Duncan, known by the code name Black Kaiser, to take out the gang's leader. Unexpectedly, Duncan flatly refused the mission. The assassin agency has a rule. As soon as an operative turns 50, they are forced to retire. Duncan didn't want to be summoned or discarded like a dog at their whim. Duncan drove his rusty 1989 Ford down the highway. He drove all the way to a cold, mountainous area, arriving in a remote small town in Montana. This was the place he had chosen for his retirement. No one knew he lived in such a remote mountain area. As a top-tier assassin, he needed to hide to survive longer. He arrived at the lakeside cabin he had bought, and this would be where he spent the rest of his life. To pass the boring nights, he even bought a cute puppy in town as a companion. Duncan fell asleep by the fireplace. In his dreams, he always revisited a familiar scene. It was an assassination mission he had once executed. A car was parked by the roadside, and he had shot and killed the entire family inside. He woke up with a start and fired his gun, accidentally shooting and killing the puppy he had just bought. The next day, while burying the dog, he noticed someone in front of the house across the way. A girl was struggling to chop wood but couldn't split a single log. Finally, helpless, she drove away. But when she returned, she was shocked to find that all the wood in front of the house had been chopped and neatly stacked. She didn't know who had helped her. In front of the cabin opposite hers, Duncan revealed a faint, satisfied smile. During this time, Duncan's computer kept receiving messages from Vivian. He initially ignored them, but eventually, annoyed by the constant notifications, he answered the call. Vivian told him that the big boss wanted Duncan to do this one last job before retirement and was even willing to add another $1 million to his fee. For the sake of the money, Duncan finally agreed to take the mission. Once the call reached 30 seconds, he immediately hung up, removed the SIM card, and snapped it in half. He didn't want anyone at the company to know where he lived. The reason he became the Black Kaiser was by maintaining constant caution and prudence. Duncan arrived at the mission location, the Minsk Hotel in Bellarus. Disguised as a maintenance worker, he was led by the manager to a high floor to fix a broken door lock. His target, the Belarusian mob boss Pedro, was in the luxury suite on the same floor. Duncan intentionally made a huge amount of noise with his drill. Pedro, who was on the phone in the suite, became incredibly irritated by the noise. Without taking his bodyguards, he stormed out of the room alone, shouting as he walked toward Duncan. He had no idea that this maintenance worker had been waiting for him for a long time. After thrusting 2 metal spikes into Pedro's groin, Duncan immediately drew his pistol, dropped to the floor, and shot the bodyguard who rushed out the door. Duncan entered the suite and eliminated the remaining enemies. After a quick sweep, he was surprised to find a detailed file on himself sitting on the table. Duncan immediately walked back to Pedro and slapped him hard to wake him up. Then, unhurriedly, he reloaded his pistol before asking Pedro questions in Russian.
Pero parece que soy yo el que quiere matar. ¿Sabes quién hizo la orden? No sé.
Pedro stubbornly claimed he knew nothing, so Duncan took out the power drill and prepared to bore a hole in Pedro's forehead. But even as the drill breached his skull, Pedro still claimed ignorance. It seemed he truly didn't know the situation. Duncan stopped wasting time with Pedro. He guessed that he had likely been set up by his own company. This was a trap designed specifically for him. It turned out that Blut, the big boss of the assassin agency, was a ruthless and unscrupulous employer. He was planning to sell the company, but was currently in debt by $29 million. To fix this, he enforced a mandatory retirement age of 50 for the veteran assassins. He then sent a squad of young, lower-paid assassins to kill those retirees. This way, the massive pension funds could be used to offset the debt. Blut wanted to kill Duncan most of all, but Duncan was an incredibly tough nut to crack. Seeing that the trap in Bellarus failed to kill Duncan, Blut sent out his young hit squad again. The squad quickly found Duncan's private accountant, Lomas. After a severe beating, they learned that the Black Kaiser had 4 properties across the country. If they searched them one by one, they would surely find him. Despite Lomas begging for his life, the group of young killers shot him dead. Immediately after, they traveled non-stop, checking one address after another in search of Duncan. Meanwhile, Duncan had returned to his hideout in the snowy town. On the town streets, he ran into his neighbor, the short-haired girl, several times. The old man and the young woman finally sat down to chat. The somewhat timid and shy girl was named Camille, and she seemed very interested in Duncan. When she learned that Duncan had traveled to many countries as a funeral specialist, was well-informed and spoke multiple languages, she suggested he could work at a kindergarten after retirement. Duncan thought it was a good idea, and actually went to a kindergarten to try it out. The result was him pulling out a curved knife and teaching a group of children how to quickly sever a human artery. The children clapped their hands in delight. He even distributed photos of dead bodies he had taken for the children to view, leaving the kindergarten director watching from the back with a horrified expression. Clearly, Duncan's dream of teaching didn't work out. Through their time together, Duncan and Camille became closer. However, there was something mysterious about this girl. Whenever she was alone at night, she would silently weep. It seemed her past held unspeakable pain. One day, Duncan went to Camille's house to give her a gift. He thought Camille liked his large curved knife, so he gifted her a brand new Beretta PX-4 handgun. Camille froze when she saw the object. Since Camille didn't know how to use a gun, Duncan decided to teach her. Duncan carefully explained how to use it, but when Camille held the pistol, her entire body trembled, and she eventually threw the gun on the ground, crying. Duncan had no idea what trauma Camille carried, and feeling awkward, he gave up on teaching her how to use a firearm. Meanwhile, the hit squad was still struggling to locate Duncan's hideout. They had searched all 4 properties with no results. Just as everyone was getting anxious, Hilda, while checking Lomas's bills, discovered that Duncan donated money to a charity every year. The bank account address for the donation was located in a small-town bank in Montana. With this new lead, the hit squad quickly drove to the town. Sure enough, they finally spotted Duncan on the street. A hunting net specifically designed for him was thus deployed. On his way home, Duncan noticed a young woman's car had broken down by the roadside. Out of kindness, he stopped his car. However, being cautious, he noticed in the rearview mirror that the girl intentionally unzipped her jacket while walking toward his car in the freezing cold. This single move blew her cover. The sweet-looking Cindy told Duncan her car was broken and, coincidentally, her phone battery had died. She was helpless and needed assistance. Duncan, having worked as an assassin all his life, found these clumsy tactics laughable. However, he didn't expose her. Instead, he played along and took Cindy back to his cabin. He wanted to see what their backup plan was. Late at night, Cindy began to seduce Duncan as expected. Her role in the hit squad was to act as the vanguard and seduce the target. Duncan didn't care about these tricks. Since dessert was delivering itself, he was happy to take advantage of it. While things were heating up inside, a sniper was lying in wait in the woods not far from the cabin, aiming his rifle dead at Duncan. The other 2 assassins were also quietly approaching the cabin. Hilda gave the order to kill. The sniper turned on his laser sight, aiming at Duncan's bare back. Just a second before he fired, Duncan suddenly dropped down and lifted Cindy up. The shot hit their own companion squarely. The sniper continued to fire into the house. It seemed Duncan had to eliminate this biggest threat first. Hilda and her partner kicked open the door and stormed in, but Duncan was already gone. The distant sniper quickly scanned the area with his scope, but the Black Kaiser was nowhere to be seen near the house. Where could Duncan have gone in such a short time? The answer was right beside him. Duncan pushes the sniper's corpse aside and trains the sniper rifle on his own cabin. The roles had reversed. He was now the hunter. The assassins inside the house quickly hid behind the walls. One assassin quietly ran out the door. Duncan shot out all the lights in the house, plunging the environment into darkness. He then activated his thermal scope, allowing him to clearly see the heat signatures inside. To save herself, Hilda threw out several flares. At this moment, an accomplice from the hit squad had quietly reached the sniper point. He unleashed a barrage of gunfire at Duncan's prone position, but Duncan had already dressed a corpse in his clothes and was hiding in a tree. Now, only Hilda remained in the house. She finally realized the massive gap between them and a top-tier assassin. Eventually, the flares burned out, and her time was up. Duncan single-handedly eliminated the hit squad. But now, he needed to confirm who had sent them. On a nearby corpse, he found a motel keycard. He immediately drove there. He opened the door and found only a weary, dazed woman inside, with no one else around. Just as he was about to leave, he heard the woman ask a question in a daze. This sentence immediately triggered Duncan's alarm. Sensing something was wrong, he rushed back to the lake. He burst into Camille's home, but she was gone. The floor was a mess, showing signs of a struggle. He quickly drove back to the motel, but the woman was gone too. It seemed the group had fled. Meanwhile, at the headquarters of the assassin company, Blut, after learning that the hit squad he had spent so much effort cultivating had been completely wiped out, flew into a rage and began smashing everything around him. He hadn't expected a near-retired old man to dare confront the entire company. He swore to tear Duncan to pieces. To find Camille's whereabouts, Duncan went to a bar. The owner was an old assassin named Porter from the same company. He had retired years ago, but was a know-it-all. Duncan went there to find out what was going on. Porter told Duncan everything he knew. The reason lay in his $8 million pension. When money accumulates to a certain amount, it makes people envious. Having learned the reason, Duncan prepared to leave. Porter reached out to shake his hand in farewell, but suddenly smeared a special agent on his hand. Duncan instantly began foaming at the mouth and collapsed. It turned out Porter had already been bought off by the company. Duncan was captured by the company, but Blut wasn't going to kill him that easily. There were still 4 days until Duncan's official retirement. Blut decided that during these 4 days, he would torture Duncan in brutal and bloody ways every single day. He didn't spare Camille, who had only known Duncan for a short time either. Every day, he had people inject Camille with large doses of drugs, causing the poor innocent girl unbearable agony. Blut used small scissors to cut countless wounds all over Duncan's body, and this was only the first day. Over the next few days, Blut returned daily to do the same to Duncan. It seemed like a hopeless situation for Duncan, until the 3rd day, when Blut was stabbing Duncan with a small knife. The blade tip snapped off and got stuck between his ribs. When no one was watching, Duncan dug the blade tip out of his waist and used it to unlock his chains. On the final day, when the guard approached him, he suddenly attacked. In an instant, he killed the guards in the cell. Blut, who had just arrived with a large team, heard the gunshots and screams from the room and turned to run in terror. His team, just as terrified, abandoned the idea of fighting the lone Duncan and scrambled toward the stairwell. Duncan reached the narrow corridor. He shot the airborne fire extinguisher, using the spreading smoke to engage in close combat. Even after being tortured for 3 full days, as the Black Kaiser, his combat effectiveness remained incredibly powerful. Duncan escaped his confinement. He was now completely exhausted. His mind was focused entirely on the tortured Camille. The thought of saving her kept him going until he reached his friend Yasmin's base. Upon seeing Yasmin, his first act was to ask for a phone to call Vivian. He wanted to make another deal with Vivian, his life for Camille's. After receiving a firm answer, Duncan finally let out a sigh of relief and collapsed unconscious into Yasmin's arms. He had that nightmare again. When he woke up, his wounds had been properly bandaged and treated by Yasmin. He had survived again, but lost an eye. Yasmin was no ordinary person. Her base was a massive armory, with enough weapons and ammunition to equip an army. Duncan indeed needed a legion's worth of firepower for this final battle. Yasmin gave him a pair of laser-guided gloves and a massive amount of weaponry. On the way to the destination, Duncan called Vivian again to confirm the time and place of the trade. Meanwhile, the assassination company mobilized several vehicles and headed toward the meeting site. This time, they were determined to kill Duncan there. Duncan chose an abandoned factory for the trade. This was his chosen battlefield. He began setting up the field in advance. By the time he finished, the enemy's main force had arrived. Vivian, leading an entire squad, was extremely arrogant. In her view, no matter how tough Duncan was, he couldn't fight so many people. Blut, watching remotely, was leisurely eating breakfast. To him, victory was already secured. Yet Duncan, facing so many enemies, stood calmly smoking a cigarette. To Vivian, he was just feigning composure. The Black Kaiser was at the end of his rope. She turned to walk away, signaling it was time to kill this top assassin. Duncan unhurriedly placed his half-smoked cigarette on the hood of the car. Then, in the next second, he activated his gloves. Duncan's gloves controlled a machine gun array consisting of countless M249s. The laser beams from his fingers acted like the Grim Reaper's scythe. Wherever he pointed, a torrent of bullets poured down. In just a few seconds, Vivian's army was completely gunned down. He then picked up the half-cigarette and continued smoking. Vivian sat on the ground, stripped of her arrogance. Now, she felt only shock, terror, and fear. She had finally experienced the horror of the Black Kaiser firsthand. Duncan spared her, but he would absolutely not spare Blut. At this moment, Blut was still talking tough, but he had lost the aura of a boss. A subordinate pointed out the window. The one-eyed Black Kaiser was walking step by step toward the castle. The few remaining guards around Blut fled instantly, leaving Blut alone. Duncan walked into the castle, ignoring the fleeing guards. He only wanted to kill one person. He grabbed a battle axe and walked up behind Blut, who was still on the phone. Duncan found Camille, who had been tortured beyond recognition. He picked her up and took her home. After days of his careful care, Camille gradually recovered her health. One day, when he woke up, he found Camille missing. He discovered the bed was covered in newspaper clippings. The news reports were all about the mission that frequently appeared in his nightmares. He also saw the charity statements for his annual donations on the bed. At this moment, he finally understood who Camille really was. What was bound to come had finally arrived. It turned out Camille was the only girl he had spared during that assassination mission. Growing up, Camille had been searching for him, tracking him, and getting close to him, all to one day avenge her family. The reason Duncan had been tormented by that mission was that he discovered afterward he had killed the wrong people. That was why he donated to the girl he spared every year, to atone for his sins and ease his conscience. But he had never dared to face that guilt directly. When he saw with his own eyes that the girl was Camille, he shed tears. He felt remorse for the sins he had committed. Because of him, the girl before him had endured too much suffering, both in the past and present. Camille raised the gun and aimed at him. Duncan closed his eyes. Ultimately, Camille spared Duncan. Now Camille wanted to find the person truly behind the order to kill her parents. Duncan went to the balcony and lit a cigarette. Camille came to his side. At this moment, she radiated the same aura he did. Duncan now knew what he would do in retirement. Not raising dogs or fish, but training the next generation's deadliest assassin. This film is the 2019 action movie Polar. It is yet another story about the working class coming to collect a debt. The film is a naked exposure and critique of modern employment relationships, using the rule of retirement equals death to squeeze out the last remaining value. Pushes the alienation of people by capital to an absurd extreme. Duncan's resistance is not just for survival, but a declaration of war against the logic of capital that turns life into digital assets. This movie is also a fable and a warning. If workers continue to be maliciously exploited by capital, it is very likely that everyone could become a Black Kaiser.